My name is Adriana. I'm 40 years old. I run a family wine estate in Sonoma that's been certified organic since 2015. And last summer, my own brother forged our export certification documents to sell counterfeit bottles under our label to distributors in 3 countries, nearly destroying a reputation our grandfather spent 50 years building. I want to show you the exact moment a customs seizure in Rotterdam exposed the whole thing. But first you need to understand how the estate ended up in my hands alone and why that decision never sat right with him. Picture this. A customs warehouse outside Rotterdam, September 2025. A shipment of 4,200 bottles bearing our estate's label. Seized because the batch numbers didn't match any vintage we'd ever actually produced. That's where this ends. Let me walk you through how we got there. If you're watching, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment, and this one still feels surreal to me even now. Our grandfather, Salvatore, planted the first vines on this property in 1974, and by the time he passed the estate to our father in 2001, it had grown into a respected 60-acre operation known for small batch Zinfandel. Our father ran it until his death in 2019, and the will named me sole heir to the operating business, while my brother, Marco, for years older, received a substantial cash inheritance instead, a decision our father made deliberately, based on years of watching me work the harvest every summer since I was 12, while Marco pursued a career in finance and showed little sustained interest in the vineyard until, notably, it started becoming profitable. I remember as a teenager spending entire summers with dirt under my fingernails, learning from Salvatore himself how to read a vine stress by the color of its leaves, while Marco spent those same summers at internships in San Francisco, visiting the estate maybe twice a year, always for the harvest party, never for the actual harvest. Our father used to joke, gently, that one of us had inherited Salvatore's hands and the other had inherited his own head for numbers, a joke that felt affectionate at the time and only later revealed itself as an accurate prediction of exactly how unevenly we'd both actually shown up for this place. Marco never fully accepted that decision, though he never said so outright at the time. He simply began, over the following years, making comments at family gatherings about how the business was really built by all of us, a framing that quietly erased 2 decades of my own labor while implying an entitlement to a company he had never asked to help run. The binary choice moment came in early 2024, when Marco proposed that I bring him on as a co-owner with equal decision-making authority, arguing his finance background could help us scale distribution. I declined, offering him a paid advisory role instead, one that respected his expertise without handing over control of a company built almost entirely on my own work. Marco grew distant after that, a coolness I attributed, at the time, to simple disappointment rather than anything more calculated. If you've ever had a sibling who believed inheritance should be split evenly regardless of who actually did the work, you understand exactly the tension I'm describing. Drop a comment if that's familiar. I didn't learn until the customs seizure that Marco had spent much of 2025 quietly building relationships with 3 overseas distributors, presenting himself as our estate's export director, a title he'd never actually held, and supplying them with wine sourced from a bulk producer in the Central Valley, bottled under counterfeit versions of our label, complete with forged organic certification and export documents bearing a signature meant to pass as mine. Our actual export partner in Germany flagged the discrepancy first, noticing a shipment with batch numbers that didn't match our production records, which triggered the customs hold in Rotterdam. I received a call from our compliance attorney, Renata Solis, on a Tuesday afternoon that upended everything I thought I understood about my own brother. Renata's investigation, working with a wine fraud specialist and our own bottling records, confirmed the forged batch numbers, the counterfeit organic certification, and email correspondence with all 3 distributors originating from an address Marco had registered using our estate's domain without my knowledge. The forged signature on the export documents, when compared against verified samples of my own, showed the same telltale inconsistencies fraud examiners always find. Close enough to pass a glance, wrong in the details that matter. I remember sitting in Renata's office as she laid out the timeline, month by month, showing exactly how methodically Marco had built this, registering the shadow email address in February, opening a relationship with the first distributor in April, sourcing bulk wine from a producer 200 miles from our own vines by June. It wasn't an impulsive mistake. It was a plan built carefully over most of a year by someone who had clearly convinced himself at some point along the way that this counted as building the business rather than stealing from it. If you've ever discovered a sibling was willing to counterfeit your own family's legacy rather than simply ask for a fair conversation, you understand a very specific kind of grief. Tell me in the comments if you've lived something like it. I confronted Marco in October 2025 with Renata present. He admitted everything within minutes, his composure cracking almost immediately. I told myself I was just building the export business you were too cautious to pursue, he said. That I'd show you results and you'd finally see me as an equal partner instead of someone who got left out of what should have been ours together. I know now that isn't what actually happened. I stole from the family name to prove a point nobody asked me to prove. We resolved this through restitution rather than criminal referral, given the family stakes. Marco repaid the recovered damages to our German partner and the two other distributors, forfeited any future role at the estate, and signed an agreement permanently prohibiting any use of our name or trademark. The counterfeit shipments were destroyed, and our actual certifying body conducted a full audit that ultimately reaffirmed our organic status, clearing the confusion in the market within a few months. Marco and I speak rarely now, mostly logistics around our mother's care. I think some days about the vineyard rows we used to run through as children and how differently that same inheritance came to define us as adults. Our mother, who never fully understood the technical details of the fraud, only understood that her two children were no longer speaking. And I've had to make peace with the fact that fixing the business side of this didn't automatically fix the family side and may never fully. I think if you've made it this far, the thing worth remembering is this. Legacy isn't divided by blood alone. It's built by whoever actually shows up to do the work year after year. And when someone tries to counterfeit their way into something they weren't given honestly, the truth, once traced carefully enough, always finds the batch number that doesn't match. If this story meant something to you, subscribe, drop a like, and tell me where you're watching from. Share it with someone who needs it. I'll see you in the next one.